Tensions are rising all across the globe. The US is considering a ground operation against Iran. China is sending warships around Taiwan. Serbia says some neighbors might attack it or declare war. New operation signals from the US to Cuba are coming, and 2026 is getting more complex. Is 2026 the year of war? But right at this point, I get a notification on my phone. What's that? Bitcoin has passed $74,000. While it feels like World War III is about to start, why is Bitcoin rising? And will it bring an altcoin rally? We'll look into these in this video. Let's be honest, in this climate, everyone thought altcoins and cryptos would be devastated because a rising market was expected in 2025 if Trump won. Trump won. It's been a very bad year for cryptos. 2026 is here, and now we're living through the year of wars. Maybe in the future, we'll call this the year of wars. And especially after this US-Iran war, everyone expected Bitcoin to crash and altcoins to vanish. There was even a huge group expecting Bitcoin to hit $35,000, but that's not what happened. Instead of crashing, Bitcoin showed an increase. After dipping to 62,000, it hit 65, 70, 71, 73, and now 74, knocking on 75. And naturally, everyone asks this question: how can Bitcoin rise like this in a war environment? Of course, there are several reasons for this, and we'll look at them in this video. I'm moving on to the reasons now, but first, I'd be very happy if you liked the video and leave a comment. Friends, markets price the consequences, not the war itself. So the war here is a chaotic one. Will it turn into World War III? Will there be a supply shortage in oil lasting months or even years? Will other countries join the war? Will inflation explode? Will central banks raise interest rates even higher? As you can see, there are many scary scenarios, but they aren't all real. They lack rationality, and over time we see that most won't be as bad as expected. So, some big players in the market are sure this chaos won't last forever. They think the economic impact won't be as devastating as we first thought. So why is Bitcoin strong? Now let's get to the Bitcoin side. Institutional demand is still very vibrant. Recent institutional interest in Bitcoin has been a major factor in this strong price movement. Specifically, the flow into spot Bitcoin ETFs showed that Bitcoin now sees serious demand from institutions beyond just US retail investors. These factors, friends, are positively affecting the price. In the past, what would everyone do in times of war or crisis? They'd run to gold as a safe haven or to the dollar with its high interest rates. But this time, it didn't happen that way, because now people are looking for an alternative. Gold was already priced high enough, so we have an alternative here: Bitcoin, maybe digital gold. We'll look into that in a moment. Bitcoin is being taken much more seriously now than before, friends. One of the other reasons. Actually, we can't say everything here, but those following world events know there's a power shift happening, guys. With this power shift, people, institutions, or smart money, giant companies, are moving away from unlimited money. What are they turning to? They're turning to decentralized assets. When geopolitical risk increases, people ask this: how safe is my money? For example, what did we see in Iran? Even if those with money in Iranian banks earned high interest, the currency suddenly devalued. And hyper-devaluation, it lost a very significant amount of value. Even beyond that, people couldn't withdraw their money. Because lately, people see states increasing their power and they ask, will there be capital controls in the country I live in? Or could there be banking crises? Will transfers become difficult? Will the state interfere with these transfers? In these kinds of situations, decentralized assets look attractive. So let's say you're going to flee a country at war. You can't get your money out by doing a swift transfer. When you turn it into gold, they usually seize that gold at customs. But Bitcoin's 12 words belong only to you. If it's in your mind, you cross the border too. In any country you want, that Bitcoin, those assets belong to you. I think this idea is very attractive. So in a war situation, yes, not everyone runs to buy Bitcoin, but the idea of Bitcoin is understood to be more attractive. And yes, interest in Bitcoin can sometimes increase. Actually, we saw a similar situation after the Ukraine-Russia war. Another reason is the expectation being caught off guard. If everyone in the market expects a drop and that drop doesn't happen, it's actually a reason for a rise and a good indicator. Because people say, I sold my assets, I'm expecting a drop, I'll buy from below, but the drop isn't coming. What if I'm late? I think the train is moving and people want to get back on the train, guys. So sometimes what drives the price up isn't good news, but bad news not causing a crash. This can really increase the price too. Until today, there were two major views against Bitcoin. One of them is that Bitcoin is a risky technological product. The other was that Bitcoin is the digital form of gold, a digital safe haven. But when we see what's happened recently, this second view is becoming stronger. People see Bitcoin as digital gold, as a store of value. Remember, even with gold, when technology advances and gold-producing companies find much more efficient methods, production can speed up, costs can drop significantly, and the price can suffer inflation. But with Bitcoin, no matter how much power you allocate, how many megawatts you set aside, the amount of Bitcoin that can be mined is fixed and unchangeable. So Bitcoin could actually be a more reliable store of value than gold in the future. It promises this. While the world seems to be burning, why are cryptos still positive? Looking from the outside, everything is really bad. There's war in the Middle East, there's tension in Asia. The language of threat is rising in Central Europe. New blocks, new military moves, and new operation announcements. But financial markets don't perceive the agenda linearly as if they're reading the news, guys. Sometimes the bottom forms at the moment of greatest fear. Sometimes, while everyone is fleeing, smart money, strong money actually starts coming to that product. And sometimes the market says, yes, the situation is bad, but I had actually priced in something worse. So it wasn't as bad as I expected. This points to a gradual rise. We're already seeing something similar to that in Bitcoin. By the way, my friends, Binance distributed an airdrop on the Web3 side that earns $240. To avoid missing these kinds of airdrops, you can sign up for Binance using the QR code on the screen or the link in the description. You can benefit from both a $600 welcome bonus and a 20% commission discount. Click the link, sign up with your email address, and complete your identity verification. So why are altcoins rising, or can they even rise? Let's take a look at that. Because I know most of you haven't been interested in Bitcoin or owned any, and that's what saddens me most. Bitcoin is very valuable. I wish you owned some, but altcoins always catch your interest. I just explained Bitcoin's rise with rational reasons. It makes sense to us now. So what's waiting for us on the altcoin side? The answer is often about psychology and timing. The system generally works like this. Bitcoin rises, gives confidence to the market, and creates a perception of profit for people. Then the major coins rise. After that, people's risk appetite starts to increase. Those who see the rise in Bitcoin and even those who missed it turn to altcoins, or those who took profits from Bitcoin turn to altcoins. Because the altcoin market rises with hope, with expectation, and with a narrative. So yes, there's still time for altcoins. There's time for an altcoin rally, but there are sometimes these kinds of issues. Look, friends, you can see the number of registered and tracked tokens here right now. In 2021, this number was around 20,000, friends. Then it goes up to the millions. But coming to 2026, we see that 38 million tokens have been created. So capital is being divided into too many things. This is unacceptable. Yes, I think reducing the meme coin and shitcoin nonsense is very necessary for a real altcoin rally. That's why I don't put much of my energy or interest in that direction. But let's be a bit realistic. In a world like this, despite everything, yes, there's war and people are dying. I wish no one died, no innocents died, and wars would end. Of course, that's our biggest wish. But in such an environment, no one should expect an altcoin rally. But remember, just as you wake up one morning and see news of war, news of peace can also come suddenly. When that peace news arrives, yes, we'll sit down and evaluate it then. Will the altcoin rally begin? So there's no need to rush at all. Don't let 2026 be the year you aim to make huge amounts of money. If your capital is already medium or large, 2026 is a year to protect your assets. You need to reduce risk and increase your observation. Yes, if you're a small asset holder, we're already chasing what we can, but this is a risky year, friends. Now let's answer the questions from the beginning of the video. Why is Bitcoin rising while there's a war? Because the market isn't just pricing in fear. Because institutional demand for Bitcoin continues. Because some investors are now turning to decentralized assets. Because when the expected crash didn't happen, the market caught everyone off guard. Because when Bitcoin shows strength, it creates expectations for altcoin. But for that altcoin rally you're looking for, it needs major relief, more confidence, and much less chaos. So it still has some time, guys. In short, the world may be shaken by war and chaos. Headlines may be dark, but this crazy crypto market can sometimes start writing a very interesting, completely different story, even in the darkest headlines. Bitcoin wants to write that story right now. Don't get too hopeful, but Bitcoin is trying. Altcoins could be the later chapters of this story. It's still very early. When this altcoin season will be written is likely not about when the war ends, but about the post-war climate and how central banks will behave. I hope the video was clear. Hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye, everyone.